Good morning. We'll go ahead and call the September 10th, 2019 EDA meeting to order. Charity, if we can start with a roll call, please.
Director Freeman.
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Director Ward Costello. Present. Director Trant.
Here.
Director Bain.
Here.
Director Patrick. Vice Chairman Metz.
Here.
And Chairman Booth.
Here. Thank you, Charity. First off, I'd like to welcome Mr. Jimmy Bain to our authority. First meeting in official attendance here since we kind of took the summer off from having regular meetings. So welcome.
Thank you.
We've got two items on the consent agenda today. Approval of the most recent minutes that were completed. Actually, I apologize, there are no minutes in here. And our end of the year financial statement. So if there's any need for comment, looking for a motion for approval for that. I have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion needed? Hearing none. If we can call that for a vote, please, Chair.
Director Freeman.
Aye.
Director Ward Costello. Aye. Director Trant.
Aye.
Director Bain.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Metz.
Aye.
And Chairman Booth.
Aye. Thank you, Charity. First item on our agenda today is a public comment period. And for that, I know that there are some that have signed up to speak today. And I'm going to ask Tim to step in and try and marshal the public comment period as we begin. So, Tim, if you...
First, just say welcome. We don't often get public comment or attendees, so thank you for your interest in the business, the authority. Just a few ground rules. We're going to have 20 minutes of public comment period this morning. Each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes, so we have an odd number of speakers. We may go to 21. We'll give some latitude there, but we'd like to contain it to 20 minutes so we can get on to the rest of our agenda. We'd ask that you address your comments to the authority, not members of the audience. Speak to us. Be courteous, respectful, and professional in your comments. Try not, just in the interest of giving everybody that wants to speak a chance to speak, try not to be redundant of the comments of somebody that's gone before you. If somebody's already said kind of what's on your mind and said it well, and you want to endorse that, just say in deference to those that may come behind you in the speaking order, just say, I endorse the comments of those before me, and give somebody a chance to that has something new and different to say to speak. Any questions from anybody before we open the public comment period?
Where do you want us to speak from?
Yes, we'll have you come and speak, and I'll call you up in the order that you signed in. So if you want to speak, we do ask that you signed in. I have 4 speakers listed here. I'll call them in the order that they've signed up. If you decide during the speaking period that you want to be an additional speaker, somebody has not voiced something that you want us to know about, please just get this form out from me and walk over, tap me on the shoulder, get the form, and fill out your name. When you come to the podium, I'll start the timer, and I just ask that you give your name and address for the record, and then I'll start the timer, and then we'll look forward to hearing what you have to say. I'll give you a hand wave, or try to, at about 2 minutes and 30 seconds, so you know you've got about 30 seconds left to kind of wrap up your comments. All right? We'll get going. The first speaker signed up is Mary. I'm not going to try to pronounce her last name. I'm sorry.
I don't do public speaking anymore because of some health issues, so this will be very...
Mary, if you could just give your name and address for the record. Thank
I will.
you.
This will be very quick, and I may have to read some of it. I'm Mary Kay Weston. I live at 34 Poquoson River Drive.
Thank you. Proceed.
I'm concerned with the inclusion of item F.A. in your agenda presentation from Legacy. The letter that accompanied the agenda there's an offer that appears to be improper and amounts to improperly influencing members of the city council. I'd like to start by putting a few definitions and distinctions on the table. First, proffers. Yes, developers can offer proffers, but in Virginia law, they are very strictly regulated and are to be done a certain time and in a certain way. They must be related to the rezoning being questioned. Proffer being offered now doesn't even lie within Legacy's boundaries. The rezoning itself must give rise to the need for conditions. The conditions shall have a reasonable relation to the rezoning. No condition shall be proffered that is not related to the physical development or physical operation of the property. That's a direct quote from Virginia law on proffers. Then, lobbying. That's an attempt by individuals or private interest groups to influence the decision of government. Lobbying has three distinct things that make it different from proffers or bribery. The money is not quid pro quo. They can't offer something of value or money for another specific thing. They can do lobbying in general for wide causes. You can't make a specific one. The money is tracked in lobbying. There are very specific laws. People must be registered to do the lobbying. And the money is limited, at least for direct contributions to campaigns. The rise of PACs, that one has gotten changed a bit, but it doesn't really apply in this case. So what the developer is doing is not really lobbying. Bribery refers to offering, giving, soliciting, or receiving any item of value as a means of influencing the action of an individual holding public or legal duty. There you have them. Proffer, lobbying, bribery. It's up to you to decide which of these apply and if it's even appropriate for you to have agenda number F on your meeting today.
Thank you, Ms. West.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is John Foden.
Yes, that's correct, sir. I have nothing to add to what the first speaker.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Natalie Canella.
Hi, how are you? I'm Natalie Canella at 84 Road Drive. I'm here today to give my opposition of the EDA recommending the request for the required buffer be reduced from 40 feet to 10 feet on the EDA-owned property line and concession for an additional right-of-way. The EDA owns 2 parcels with a total of 3.5987 acres of land, and the developer has 5 lots that bump up to the EDA property. The City Council already approved in 2015 a reduction of a required 60-foot buffer to 25 feet on Victory Boulevard for the length of the development, which is 1,450 feet. Just that concession alone allowed the developer to gain 1.165 acres or 50,700 feet from their buildable property back. This is not a new developer, and they knew the required buffers and did not submit this initially to work around and get more concessions from the city. The $500,000 that they're trying to recoup now is the cost of operation of their higher cost of building the lots up and mitigation that they advised in their letter to the EDA. The developer knew these were sunk costs of building the property up, and it's not the city's responsibility to help the developer make millions and continue to give them extra buildable property back to make more profit. If the EDA did approve the reduction in buffer, where would the additional right-of-way be built and on whose property? I feel these are critical issues that need to be addressed now. I have many issues with this development, including the schematic site plan, the request for the pool clubhouse that the city suggested being built, and then now they're asking to be put into phase 2 of development with no guarantee that's ever going to happen. and additional requests for multiple buffers in different locations. The ordinances are there for a reason, such as safety, welfare, consistency, and aesthetically pleasing landscape and green space. I want to make sure the city's planning commission does its due diligence to assess the impact to the city and surrounding areas, which includes, again, the aesthetics, environmental impacts, and the drainage, to the surrounding areas. And what would the buffer impacts do to those that were already listed on the schematic plan? If you're going to allow developers to consistently request reductions and not allow private individuals to always do the same, why do we have ordinances in it at all anyway? Remember, concessions should not be granted to developers for them to recoup expenditures. Thank you.
Next speaker is Randy Trustrad.
Morning. I'm Randy Trustrad. I live at 212 Beach Road. I'm also raising concerns about the request from the developer, and I submitted my comments in writing to you all. And there are concerns which I'm sure that you all have already thought about, but I just wanted to raise them publicly. I'm concerned about what this will do to the EDA property. It would diminish the value of the property when you abut houses right next to the EDA property. What kind of business will want to come in there? Will you get a lot of pushback from the community when you propose something for that property? So I'm concerned about that. And I think that this buffer reduction request has to be looked at with all the other buffer reduction requests. I think this should not be, this request should not be granted I don't think it should be granted, but I think it should be delayed and be discussed more at the Planning Commission, because in my view, I'm wondering if the developer is even going to build Phase 2. So, and what compels them legally or financially to build Phase 2. And I think all those concerns need to be discussed more openly in the Planning Commission. And lastly, I'm wondering if the developer has changed the plan so much, whether they are even operating anymore under a valid permit from the DEQ and the Army Corps. I think it's very questionable because of all the changes and the potential impacts with the buffer reductions.
Mr. Chair, that's all I have lined up to speak. Are there others in the audience wishing to speak before we close the public comment section?
Thank you, Tim. So moving forward, the next item on our agenda is new business, presentation of the legacy overview and request of the EDA and the attached letter. Just for the record, the EDA is not a decision maker in any buffer reductions or any other matter as it relates to the approval of any requests. The EDA happens to be an adjacent landowner to the legacy development, and that is the purview of the discussion today is as an adjacent landowner. So with that, I'll invite Lamont to the podium. Will, if you can please introduce yourself for us.
Good morning. Chairman Booth, members of the commission, my name is Lamont Myers. I'm the A manager of the Big Woods Development Company. We're the developers of the Legacy of Poquoson project. Just want to take a few minutes. I don't have a formal presentation. I just really wanted to talk through what it is we're here asking for your support on. We're not here to relitigate the zoning case, nor are we here to really amend the project at all. What we're trying to do basically is get back to where we thought we were in the first place. The project was approved in 2015. I don't know, can you all see this okay? This is the approved, copy of the approved master plan. Can you hear me all right if I speak without the microphone? Will this pick up?
Can't hear you on television, though.
Okay, let me, maybe I'm not sure quite how to do this without getting in the way. Can't put it over that window, can I, Dave?
Yeah, you can put it
Can I do that if they don't, do they need that?
I'll tell you what, let's move this down.
Okay. Thanks, Bob, appreciate it. Anyway, okay.
There you go.
So this is, thank you, Jim. This is the approved master plan. As you can see, buffers were never anticipated in any of these areas. When the buffer request was put originally approved, we were waived, the buffer was waived along developed areas, which was behind City Hall. The only areas that we abut that were in fact developed were behind City Hall and along the Woods of Tab community. So that was put in, that was requested because there was some language that said, you need buffers in those areas. The plan itself, our understanding when the plan was originally approved, that the plan itself would then take precedent for the balance of it, excuse me, which would have no buffers along Mr. White's property or the EDA property, and then 2 parcels which we have subsequently picked up, or along Oxford Run. We're now in the hard engineering phase of the project. We've submitted our Phase 1 development plans. We've been under review. We've received our second round of comments, and when that came up, there was a question, well, yes, the buffer requirement did specifically only refer to these 2 areas, so we are going to impose a buffer on the balance of the project. What that does is what it does here, it changes this road dramatically, and these lots, we have a number of lots in here. So what we're doing, we're not asking for any more lots than what are approved. We were approved for a maximum of 238, excuse me, single-family lots, 107 towns, and 200 apartments. In fact, we will build less than all of those. We have 105 townhomes on the Phase 1 plan. We have 176 apartments is what we're looking at. And the single families, we would be lucky to get to the 238. I don't think we're going to be able to. What we're really trying to do to keep the project financially viable is just get back the number of lots that we were approved for and not lose a number to those without really redesigning the project. We're trying to preserve all the project elements. So we're not looking to change the scope of the project, not looking to change any of the number of lots. And we're here really just to request your permission, or your support, I should say, as we go to the Planning Commission and the City Council. Only the council obviously can approve this. And so we're just trying to really clarify that. So really we're coming here because you've got a couple parcels there that are, I don't know if they're landlocked, they don't have access to a public street, and they have very limited commercial potential. They're sort of buried back here in the middle of the woods. So being able to have any kind of visibility from Victory Boulevard, so we're trying to just find a way here that we can basically get these lots back at the same time. And at the same time, if we can help make that property more developable, we are more than happy to either move this connection or maybe add another connection here that would open this property up, where right now it's essentially landlocked. So really that's it. This is not a proffer. This is not a rezoning. This is not a change in the plan. This is none of that. This is simply trying to go back to clarify with the council what we had thought had been understood all along, is that there would not be a buffer along undeveloped wooded property. We're talking about the backs of people's single-family homes. So it's not like this is going to have some deleterious effect on the neighboring properties, nor is it going to have any effect on drainage or any of the things that you will likely hear. It is, in fact, simply a clarification here to try to get back to the way the master plan was approved in the first place. So I'm sure you'll have many questions. That's really the only reason we're here, is to ask for your support, because we do adjoin you, and you are our neighbors. And so we would ask that before we go, that we felt it was appropriate that we come and talk to the authority and ask for your support in what we're trying to do here. So with that, I'd be happy, Mr. Booth, to answer any questions that you have.
So I guess I'll open it up for questions of Mr. Myers, at this point in time, still available to answer them?
Do you have any response to the concerns you heard voiced today?
Well, like I said, it's not a rezone. We're not changing the project. There's a misunderstanding, I think, on the part of some in the public that we're here to, again, relitigate the zoning case. The property was zoned. We have lost a lot of time, frankly, lost a lot of time and a lot of money because we had to deal with we had to deal with the challenge to the wetland permit that ate up a couple years. And really, in the meantime, we've seen development costs spike. We're trying, very hard to keep this project together, to keep this thing financially feasible. So we're only talking about going back to the plan that was approved. The question of the buffer was really, at the time, was misunderstood. I think there was a misunderstanding between us and the staff in terms of what buffer was required. And only when we got into the hard engineering phase and the final development plan that this became a front and center issue. There's been turnover in the staff. The staff is different, so we have lost some of the historical continuity there. Excuse me. So I'm not sure exactly. I mean, honestly, to be very candid, I didn't hear any concerns that I really felt were relevant to the case at hand, but I would be happy, if you have any in particular, I'd be happy to address those.
I have one question, Lamont, if I could. I'm looking at the original master plan, and it, relative to the EDA property.
Right.
And it appears that there are lots all along the border of the EDA property, and the access is to there is an access sort of to the, I guess it's to the east, but it's not to the EDA property. It appears to be to privately owned property, maybe.
We actually own that
Okay.
property now, yes.
But in the subdivision plan, or the exhibit option 2, there is additional access, it looks like, if I'm understanding the exhibit correctly, it's AES
Right.
drawing Legacy of Poquoson Phases 2 and 3, sheet 1 of 1, exhibit option 2. The street configuration's a little different. It still shows the access to the property it appears that your company now owns, but it also appears that in lieu of a lot, an access or a street has been extended, or an access way, a right-of-way has been extended to EDA property. Am I understanding that correct, or can you
Yes,
dial me in on that?
we were offering that as, because we came to y'all and said, we'd like your support, and then we got looking at it and said, these two parcels are landlocked, and we felt it was not inappropriate at all to say if we could help the authority by opening up those properties, by unlocking them, that we would be willing to sacrifice a lot to do that. So we added that in there to show what we can do and would be willing to do if it's the pleasure of the EDA. If it's something that you feel like it's beneficial to the authority's property, then we would be more than willing to add that into the plan and add a second, either replace the connection to our property or add a second connection to yours. So that's why that was not anticipated initially, and that's why we felt like it was a fair thing to do, so that's why we offered it.
Thank you. I guess just a follow-up question for staff, just for confirmation. I mean, I have no reason to disagree with anything Mr. Myers has said, but it is my recollection that these parcels were landlocked, part of a portfolio, I guess, this board inherited of, properties that the city purchased at different times to try to facilitate growth in the city hall corridor, and these are some of those landlocked parcels. Is that accurate?
That is correct, sir.
I don't mean to preempt further questions or discussions, but the ability to, first of all, I think bringing development and infrastructure investment in this area of the city enhances the value of these parcels, but only with access. And if we now have an access for these parcels through the legacy project, I mean, that's a tremendous benefit to the value and the development potential of those parcels. And I would be supportive of the buffer reduction conditioned upon assurance, that our recommendation be conditioned upon seeing that access be granted in some formal way through the subdivision plan approval process.
Questions or comments, Mr. Meyer, at this point in time? So, hearing none, I heard what you said, Tim, and I guess I'd ask, are you in a position to make a motion to that effect?
Certainly, I mean, as long as I didn't mean to preempt further discussion, but if it's for the efficiency of the party, I'm happy to make that motion. Moved.
We have a motion, is there a second? Would you like
Motion is to recommend approval of the buffer, endorse the buffer reduction condition upon the conveyance of public right-of-way to the EDA-owned property, manner generally consistent with the exhibit provided by the legacy of Poquoson. Big Woods Development Company, I guess.
Is there additional zoning?
At this point, as I understand the process, and Wally's here and can certainly assist in the formality of any of this that I get incorrect, that Legacy has merely come as an adjacent property owner to the development, but that this is scheduled to go before a public hearing with the Planning Commission and the City Council at future dates in September and October, I believe is the timetable.
Yeah, let me clarify the dates. September 16th, which is next Monday, the Planning Commission is going to have a work session beginning at 6 to kind of go over these requests, to make sure that, that's understood. Then we'll have the public hearing at 7, which everybody that's here and that's concerned, the 16th, Monday at 7. Depending on what the city, what the Planning Commission does, I mean, they have several options, but if they make a recommendation, yay or nay, on any one of these things, it will go to the City Council in October. There is a possibility that they could postpone action for a month. It's just one of the things that they could do, but that's what we're looking at right now. So,
Thank you.
So are we premature in our recommendation prior to them having their?
You don't have any approval or recommendation in any of this process. I think that this was a measure to reach out to the EDA to ask
Just
for.
wanted to make sure that that was clear, that we
Right.
really are not a.
We are
decision.
not.
Okay.
We absolutely are not. So I believe Tim's made a motion at this point. Was there a second to that motion?
Seconded.
Thank you. Any additional discussion?
What assurances are
Hearing.
that's going to get built in phase 2, if phase 2 never happens? Legally,
Call the roll.
If you can call the roll, please, Charity.
Director Freeman. Director Ward Costello. Director Tran.
Aye.
Director Bain.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Metz. And Chairman Booth.
Aye. Thank you. Moving on, unfinished business, property delineations. Dave, would you like to
Mr. Chairman,
bring us up to speed?
certainly I'd be pleased to. As the authority is aware, your 6-parcel assemblage across the street, we're currently working with Sandy Brenson with Integrity Environmental for a wetlands recertification with the Corps. Just wanted to let you know that Sandy has met with staff and looking at some routine maintenance of the property, and we will keep you updated as that proceeds.
Thank you, Dave. HREDA, and Dave, if you'd like to give the most recent news and then
Certainly,
enter into
certainly.
discussions there, please.
My pleasure, Mr. Chairman. As the authority will recall, you recommended earlier in the year to include funding for the city's membership in HREDA to your budget for city council approval. One of the things that staff committed to you at that time was that as we move forward during this year with HREDA, that we would periodically update you and let you know of the success that we are having thus far with HREDA as they support our economic development endeavors. I'm pleased to report to you on behalf of Charity and I today that we had an excellent 2-hour meeting yesterday with representatives from HREDA here at the city. They have most recently developed a business retention, expansion, and business intelligence division that is being staffed by 2 very, very capable folks that we know. And one of the things that the city's always been keenly interested in is to make sure that our investment with HREDA would provide dividends to the community as we pursue economic development. And I can let you know that both Charity and I were extremely impressed yesterday with the presentation that we were given, so much so, Mr. Chairman, that I would like to ask sometime at your discretion and the authorities if we might ask the representatives from HREDA to come forward at a meeting and let you know exactly what they are doing and how tangible and impactful we think it could ultimately be to the city.
Thank you, Dave. As I understand, this is a new program or department within the broader HREDA focus that really is focusing on the existing businesses that are within the localities and manners in which they can help to promote, fund, enhance the opportunities for expansion of those businesses, growth of those existing businesses, and certainly think that here within the city we've got kind of a very stable business community that possibly there is some benefit that HREDA can bring back to the city for those existing businesses. I guess I would like to ask what you guys thought of possibly, instead of doing a regularly scheduled meeting in November, maybe trying to do a work session the first of that month and invite HREDA here to talk about this new department or group within, subgroup within the broader HREDA and maybe engage in a dialogue about what tools they have at their discretion that possibly could enhance the existing business that's here in the city.
Welcome that, given their new leadership and direction and focus on the peninsula, which is very different than HREDA in the past. Especially knowing where Poquoson is a real plus in that. So yeah, I'd welcome that. I think that would be wonderful.
Any opposition to that, or should it be in a different environment than our normal morning time period? So I'd be inclined to just kind of replace our regularly scheduled work session with them, maybe target November, that time to hone in on exactly what that dialogue needs to be.
We will be pleased to contact them and invite them on your behalf.
Thank you, Dave. Final item under unfinished business is bond capacity discussion. As you may recall, as the EDA, we do have the ability to find a little bit of revenue through bond issuance. To date, we did reach back to the city to find out if there was any need for the EDA's current bond capacity. They are currently trying to get that question answered. However, I wanted to bring to the table for the benefit of the EDA, if there's not an interest in our capacity for 2019, if we learn that here in the coming week or so, should we put forth that there is a bond capacity available should there be any late year closings? Let's just let you guys know.
Guessing, is there any that we know of? Or
Well, should we put out a letter of interest or a...
Given the landscape changes in some communities, they may
that-
definitely think it makes sense, if there is capacity, that we get that word out sooner rather than later.
The hope is that by the end of this week, there'll be a kind of formal decision that's made as to whether any is needed internal to the city, such that then, Dave, if you and Charity could work to make out a letter of opportunity here that
Certainly.
our capacity is available if that's what we find out.
Very good.
Thank you. So staff activities, I'll turn that over. Charity, are you taking the
Sure.
staff activities?
Like to keep everyone aware of new businesses as they open. We held a ribbon cutting for 3 businesses on the same day. It's pretty exciting to have so many things happening at once, but one of the nice things was that the old Contaco hut that was really, because it was vacant, was becoming decrepit, I guess. Really, the roof was having issues. There were a number of issues with that structure. So R&R Seafood came in and they have completely rehabbed it and opened a restaurant. So they were one of our 3 ribbon cuttings. Beans Ice Cream seems to have kicked off with a real popular location. Based on Facebook and times that I have been in there, it is really regular people, kids coming in after school, after sports events and things. So that was also one. Beachy Bull was a boutique that had started to open in the Moore building, but was struggling and wasn't open regular hours. So a new owner came in and named it Beachy Bull, which is really catchy, a nice big sign at the front. Seems to be full of merchandise and always customers in there every time I'm there. So those are our 3 new businesses that we did hold a ribbon cutting for in the month of August.
Final item is our next meeting will be scheduled for October 1st, Tuesday, normal first Tuesday of the month, back to that schedule, back here at 8:30 at City Council Chambers. With that, we will adjourn the meeting. So, thank you, guys.
Thank you.